Hello, you weirdos. Jim here, and you may have noticed that this review is a couple days late, possibly about 23 cents short. While it's partly because, hey, I'm a lazy guy, it's also because Zeb Wells' Amazing Spider-Man just isn't a book I need or want to read the minute it comes out anymore. Don't get me wrong. I haven't enjoyed what Zeb Wells has been doing up to this point, but at least I was having fun in that train wreck rubbernecking kind of way. So while technically I think this Doc Ock story is a little bit better, I just find myself bored by it overall. So let's find out if this week's finale ends with an exciting bang that gets me looking forward to everything Zeb Wells is doing on Amazing Spider-Man.
You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.
Amazing Spider-Man number 30 is written by Zeb Wells and art by Ed McGuinness. And Zeb Wells starts with a thing that, surprise, surprise, I am mildly interested in. Norman Osborn pumped full of goblin serum, about to turn back to, oh wait, it didn't do anything. While I think that Wells thinks he's upping the stakes here, since if and when Norman does go back to being Green Goblin, there'll be no excuses of how it happens. It'll be 100% on him. I wish that Norman played it up here a bit and pretended to be the Goblin to outsmart Otto, but also I think it would have been a really cool twist when Peter shows up later. Now, I say that, but it does piss Otto off that he can't turn Norman back into the Goblin, and that's only the beginning, as Peter does swoop in with ox tentacles, but also a little bit of his attitude. Now, while I think that Zeb Wells constantly ruins his books' pacing with his humor attempts, I expected Peter and Otto to do the Spidey point thing here, and I actually would have laughed. Instead, we have them fight and they call each other dolts. Just not as funny as I think the point could have been. Oh well. As what I guess is a cool down arc after the gut-wrenching death, and I'm putting that in air quotes, of Kamala Khan, I was glad we were getting a little Doc Ock here. But by the end of this, he just felt more like a prop to give the reader a little superior action, but mainly to keep pushing Norman as a hero. And that's going to hit with some people, and it's not going to hit with others. But overall, it just kind of felt like, all right, you're just pushing this thing, and it just wasn't that exciting. What I really did like going into this and this whole arc was Doc Ock really being pissed off that he tried to be a good guy and nobody would accept it. But here is Norman Osborn, the worst of the worst, and everybody seems fine with that. That kind of gets dropped by the end here, and that's a shame. I think that's going to pick up in it was just announced, the Superior Spider-Man stuff that's going to come out later. But all of this, it's still not horrible. I just didn't think it had much weight to it. But then we get the ending, and now we're back to train wreck and rubbernecking, and what felt like an answer to a question nobody was asking. Zeb Wells tries to wring one last bit of feelings from Kamala's death, and I know this will be up for debate. This is going to be a controversial statement, but I thought Norman talking about Kamala giving him a quote-unquote large coffee with extra serum every day was almost as cringy as Peter sleeping with Kamala's mask. Now, I said almost. Peter sleeping with Kamala's mask was one of the cringiest things I've seen in a long time, but this whole play of Norman giving this speech at the end, tying it into Kamala being this great girl who they can't believe, they barely knew her, and it feels like it's like retroactively trying to make things work in a story that never was working. And again, like I said, at this point, it felt like the, answer to a question nobody asked. In the end, this issue and arc, they were uninspiring. It was an uninspiring way to put a buffer between Kamala's death before moving on to the upcoming Tombstone wedding stuff that might get back to what most people say is the best thing that Zeb Wells has done on this book, which was the Tombstone stuff earlier. But I think that Marvel and Zeb thought that you need a buffer. You can't just go and have this wedding stuff right after Kamala died. So we get this 3-issue arc that really didn't seem, like I said, didn't seem that inspired. I like Ed McGuinness's art overall, but this issue's just meh. The whole arc, meh, and that's something that a comic should never be, let alone an Amazing Spider-Man comic. It should be better than that. That's why I'm giving this a 5.5 out of 10, and I want to know what you all thought of it yourselves. Tell me that in the comments below. And with all that, if you haven't subscribed, please do that, like the video, all that stuff. And then, I'll stop being lazy. I'm not going to blame anybody for my laziness. That's all on me. So there you go. Thanks, everybody, and I will talk to you all later.
You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.